Hi there. This is Brent Weeks, and I'm here today. I hope I'm live with you guys to talk about Night Angel Nemesis. We're doing something a little different today, as you will be able to see. I hope. We're going to be interviewing me. You guys, if you have questions, you can ask those questions in the sidebar. We will get to as many of those as we can. My wife will be asking me the questions, so she'll be filtering those. So she's the gatekeeper, so you got to please her. Some of you will probably know how to do that better than others. But to start with, I'm going to try to answer some of the questions that I told you, those of you who get my newsletter, that I said that I would answer those questions. So I've forgotten, of course, what those questions are, so I'll just go ahead and dive right in. And you don't get to hear about this just yet. So go ahead, Christy, where are we starting?
So you wanted to talk about Nemesis and how your writing process or how writing Nemesis was different than maybe your Lightbringer books. It's been a long time since you wrote the first Night Angel books, so people are curious. Okay. What's different?
What's been different? So writing Nemesis has actually been a very different process for me. I knew that I would be revisiting the Night Angel world. I told people that a long time ago. I had kept quite secret until just recently how I would be revisiting the Night Angel world, because I wasn't 100% sure that the muse hadn't been lying to me way back when, as I originally had promised. Or I didn't promise, but I originally intended, when I was done with Night Angel, there's a little interview in the back of the book, and they asked me, well, what's next? And I said, well, I hadn't decided. I was either going to write more Night Angel books, or I was going to write some other books. So I decided I was worried about getting stuck writing books in one world for my whole career, and I was like, you know what, I want to show that I can do other things. I made some choices when I was first writing Night Angel that I didn't realize how much those would impact me down the road. So I'm going to do something really different. I thought I would just jump to this other world. I would just quick make up another world. That would be no problem, because I was a professional writer now, and I would write 3 books in 3 years, which I thought was generous, as obviously the Night Angel trilogy came out within 3 months of each other. So those must have been written in a month each. So I thought I'd do that, and then I would come right back to Night Angel. So obviously that detour took slightly longer than 3 years. So when I was thinking about coming back to Night Angel, I didn't want to make promises to people, and I never did make promises to people about who would be in the books, because I was like, what if things change, and then people will be mad at me before they even start reading the book. And so I didn't let people know what was going to be in the book, but I had a very good idea of what I thought would be in this next Night Angel book. I thought, and now it turns out it's true, that it would follow Kyler, and it would be in first person. And I thought, if I do first person, one, that's an interesting challenge for me as a writer. It's something I haven't done for a whole book. Staying with one character also, I thought would help me delve deeper into that character, be a new storytelling style for me. It would keep me from writing the same book over and over and over, which I never want to do. I get bored too easily, so I always want to write new things, push my own boundaries, get better as a writer. And I also thought that would be really helpful in helping me manage the size of this next book, because as some of you might have noticed, my books have gotten longer over the years. And I was like, you know what, this book, I'm going to be really careful. I'm going to outline it extensively. I'm going to make a plan, and I'm going to write, this book is going to be short, it's going to be sharp, it's going to have one huge emotional impact on the audience. It's going to be totally worth the ride, and I'm going to get it done in a year. So if I write it in the first person point of view, that will just constrict me. I won't be adding in new points of view with every chapter, and then all of a sudden I've got this unwieldy mess. I'll just hew to my strengths. I'll do what I know I can do, and I'll put this book out quickly. And fans will be delighted to not have to wait 2 years. So naturally that went perfectly according to plan, and fans did not have to wait 2 years. And this will be almost 3. Dang it. So I did start writing even before the last book, Burning Light, the last book of the Lightbringer series came out, I met with my agent, who's a fantastic guide to storytelling. We worked on. He asked me lots of questions. He does this wonderful thing. Some people will tell you this is how you write a story, and they kind of lay out. You got to have this point and this point and this point. And Don has never been like that. He's been more like, well, let me ask you some questions to make you think deeper about your character, to make you think deeper about what you have to say, to make you think deeper about your own story. And then we'll let your story unfold from you and from what you're passionate about. So it's not a prescriptive way. It's not like this is what you have to do to write a best-selling novel, which I always hate those kind of things, and feels really formulaic and feels like something a bot could do, 5 years from now. So I dove in, I took on the challenge, and of course the book morphed and became something far more ambitious. It is still predominantly first-person point of view with Kyler and some of his compatriots from the Night Angel books, and it's set somewhat after the events of the Night Angel trilogy. So I guess that only begins to scratch the surface of how this book was different. So it was different from conception. Then, of course, COVID came along, and that changed things for everyone in the world except for me, because I still work at home. And so I didn't really notice COVID for a while. Well, you want to share your little anecdote?
Yes. I remember very clearly in about February of 2021, so 11 months into COVID, Brent wandered into the house from his office that's just out the back door and said, "Man, this is kind of hard. I can't see everybody when I want to see them, or just go places I might want to go." And that sums up.
I said I miss people. I think I miss people, and my wife, still has bruises from her forehead hitting her desk. She couldn't believe it took me so long. So I'm a little slow, a bit of a late bloomer. But yeah, so eventually, COVID did have an impact. It's not a book about COVID, though. It's not a book where you can just draw direct parallels. I remember reading about Shakespeare, and Shakespeare wrote a bunch of his work while London was suffering plagues and stuff, and like people were dying, and the theaters were shut down, and it's like you don't open up his books and see, oh, obviously this is the one with the plague in it. Well, that was because this was happening in his life. Instead, it did overlap with some of his tragedies, which also overlapped with other tragic things that happened in his own life. But it's not a one-to-one in Shakespeare's work, and it's not a one-to-one in my work. I figure other people will write those books, will write books about plagues, and will probably do it better than I could do it. So I didn't want to do that, though. So I sort of shied away from a direct representation of that stuff. And honestly, I think all of us are pretty sick of plagues at this point in real life, and don't really need them in our fiction. Although I'm sure enough people differ that you could write a bestseller with a plague in it if you were passionate about that. So that's just me. So on to the next question, since I got that done in a minute or two, right? Yeah.
So you also took some time, intentionally backed off of social media and to keep focused on writing and doing what you wanted to do. You also didn't have a deadline this time around. So how do you think that impacted your writing process?
So the social media piece and the deadline piece are fairly different. I noticed that some of you may have noticed that in the past 3 or 4 years, social media has become a fairly acrimonious place, and I noticed that a lot of times when I would spend time on social media, I would come away and I was just angry about stuff, and like, there's someone on the internet who's wrong, and yes, as it turns out, regardless of what you think, you will find someone on the internet who's wrong. So I realized it wasn't a place where I came away from happier. generally, and the tricks that they use, the little psychological tricks to keep you scrolling, those work particularly well on my particular brain. So I realized I'm bad at this game. I'm losing the attention game to the advertisers and to the social media platforms that we're currently on right now. So yes, I realize I'm sawing off the branch that I'm resting on. Social media is awesome. It's awesome for people who use it within bounds. It wasn't being awesome for me, so I was like, you know what, I'm going to take as much of a break from this as I can. Obviously, I would post things when it was necessary, but that was helpful for me. It was helpful for me to be able to focus. I knew there was no way that if I was distracted, I would get that book done in a year. So I just really needed to buckle down, and I did it. You know, it was a triumph. So that was the first part. The second part was of your question was how did I do without having a deadline? So I knew in the past for me, having really tight deadlines had been pretty unhealthy. I've been unhealthy for our marriage. I want to be a dad who's here for my kids. Figuring out how to juggle real life and fantasy life are really challenging things for me. So I also knew that I was looking at sort of the next phase of my career, and so I had some big questions that I needed to answer. Do I want to write? You know, I promised to write one more Night Angel book, but maybe I'll write this book and I'll be exhausted and I'll be like, okay, great, I did what I promised my fans, and I'm done. I'm done with these books. I don't want to write anymore. They're not interesting to me anymore. Or would I say, you know, they're great, but it's pretty formulaic, and I don't want to do this forever. I'll do this every once in a while. I need to recalibrate my own feelings about the next stage of my career. I'm 45 now, and I only have so many books that I get to write within the course of my life. And knowing that it takes me a couple of years to write each book, it's like, you know what, I can't take a 20 book detour and then come back to what I really want to write. I need to make sure I'm writing the things that feel most meaningful to me. And so I wanted to ask some of those big questions, and I didn't know how long this would take. As it turns out, I derive a ton of my meaning and joy and satisfaction in life from writing, from feeling that I've done a good job, feeling that I've pushed myself. So when I was asking those questions about Night Angel, I took some risks with this book. I guess I'll get to see how it goes over with you guys. It is a little bit different than the Night Angel books that you've loved before. So did that pay off for everyone? I'm sure it won't pay off for somebody. It did pay off for me. I actually really liked this book. I felt like I was able to push myself to places I haven't gone before. I felt I was able to take kind of what you would think of as just an action-y fantasy novel and push it places you wouldn't expect. So I used some. I want to tell you all about it, but I've just got. I don't want to give it. I don't want to spoil anything for you. Obviously, I haven't had a chance to see it yet. So I in taking that time, I realized one. Yes, I do like to write. I am going to write just by my internal drive, even if I don't have externals hanging over my head. Two, I love the Night Angel world. I love working with these characters, and I do have enough artistic and creative freedom to tell great stories that I think will keep engaging me. So I think that I will indeed. I'm being really careful not to make promises, but from what I've learned over the last 3 years, I think I can write books set in this world that are different and creative and expressive for years to come. And I'm comfortable doing that now. So I'm comfortable making a commitment, you know, to my publisher and signing another. I've signed another 2-book deal to do. So there'll be 3 books kind of in this set. They'll be different from each other, but within sort of this broad storyline. I think they're calling it the Kyler Chronicles. So and then I was also working with a new editor who's Bradley Engler, who's been just absolutely fantastic to work with. So he's been a real partner in the process. And this time I let people see the manuscript way earlier than I had ever before. I was like, I'm going to bring in help early and see what people think early and ask questions when I get stuck. And that was terrifying because I've always been like, I just want to show my best work to people who I respect, and I do respect the people I work with. So I brought people in a little earlier. This time I had more beta readers this time. I made some big changes that I'd sort of been tossing it. So they saw it a little earlier before I made up my mind about a few of the things that were big, and then I went someplace else, and I was like, do any of you guys want to look at this again? And almost all of them were like, yes, we want to read it again. So I had beta readers and gamma readers, and that was kind of crazy. So I've seen this book a lot. So yeah, so those are just a few of the ways in which it was different, but it's been a great experience for me, actually. So I really have been loving what I do.
Are you sick of this book? You've spent a long time planning it, and then writing, and then the editing time has actually been longer than with any other book, but also less time crunched. So I personally think that's been good for all of us in the Weeks household. How do you feel about this book right now?
Yeah, so most people who are not in the industry or haven't written a book have no idea how many times you see a novel and how many times you send it out the door and then you're delighted. You're like, and people ask, "Are you done?" And you're like, "Yeah, asterisk," because it comes back. You send it out the door. So I did several rounds of story level edits with my editor. Okay, I'm done. I've ironed out most of the major wrinkles. So you look at it. You know, he sends it back. I made this big change. I sent it back. He sent it back to me. And then with obviously with the beta readers and then the gamma readers, we've gone back and forth. And then I've gone with even the copy editors. I've gone back and forth way more than I ever have before. And I got to work with what's Brent's last name? Brent McDonald, who's the managing editor. She does the copy editing stuff. She manages that side of things at Orbit, and she's brilliant. She really kind of weds the strengths of a linguist with an artist. It's really cool. Like, she's like, I see why you're breaking the rule over here, and that totally makes sense. So you should break the rule here. But did you also want to break the rule, be consistent with yourself on page 600 where you did the same thing? And I was like, oh my gosh, you're right. I totally missed that I was inconsistent. Like, I did that for the reason, you saw the reason. So she was great. So, but it went back and forth, and then we had author queries on that. And so actually it was just yesterday that I finally, I think, have had my hands on that thing for the very last time. So authors always, they always kind of hate the book by the time they're done because they've just seen it so much. And so I called up my agent the other day and I said, Don, I think I'm really in trouble. And he's like, oh, okay. You know, agents kind of deal with artists in crisis. It's kind of part of their job. They have to talk people down off the ledge. I don't know how you work with artists. I just don't know how you do it. You know, oh boy, here we go. Don's very good at this, so he's very level. And he's like, okay. I said, Don, I don't hate this book. I think I'm really in trouble. So I think it's pretty good. So he's like, oh no. He's like, I've never heard that one before. So I don't know what that means, and that'll be up to you guys. Either it's got some tiny amount of merit, or Brent has really lost it, and that'll be up to you to figure out. So, you know, maybe a little bit of this, a little bit of that. So maybe I don't have any idea how long we've been talking, but maybe we've gone so long that we should take some questions.
It's only been 20 minutes.
It's only been 20 minutes? You guys. Okay, so here's my question to you guys real quick, just as a tangent. So Christy's talking to me. One, can you hear her? Is she loud enough and clear enough? And then two, don't you think she should be on camera too? Isn't that only fair? Christy loves to be the center of attention. You might have noticed she comes on book tour. She just pushes her way up front. Actually, I kind of had to twist her arm just to get her voice on here. So she hates me right now, but that's okay. I'll pay for it later. You won't get to see that. Oh, okay. Sorry. Let's. This is why you tune into a live stream, isn't it? Like we can't cut that part out, Christy. I'm just in trouble. So, are there other questions we had that fans had for me that I should?
I am curious. We know that every author has doubts and insecurities. That's part of the artist temperament and part of being a professional who cares about your work. What were some of your particular worries while writing this book? Maybe you've touched upon some of your, do I have the skills to do this, and some of those things that you wrestled with, but what about reader? What have you been worried about with readers when you were writing this book?
I mean, mostly I've worried that, like, what is it going to do to me to be on, like, to have a #1 bestseller for 52 weeks? I'm nervous about, can I handle that level of fame? Am I ready? Yeah, do we need to buy a new security system for the house, or I'm just gonna have so many stalkers? I don't know. I can't believe you asked me about my insecurities. I'm doing a publicity event. Like, I can't act like I have insecurities. I'm not human. I'm a writer, for goodness sake. Okay. Well, I in revisiting the world, like, fans fall in love with what they experienced. So when fans push an author to sort of rewrite the same book, they actually don't want the author to rewrite the same book. What they want, they think they want the author to rewrite the same book. What they actually want is they want the same experience that they had the first time they read that book, where they were at in their life then. And so they think that, like, well, this author can do that, so why can't they just do it again? And it's like, well, you can't do it again because you already know these characters, you already know this world. And actually, if you run into Kyler's brother, Siler, and he's just exactly like Kyler, and he does all the same things, you're going to be like, ew, like, I've already seen this story before, and you're actually not going to like it. So that idea of fans wanting at some level that same experience that they had, and certainly at this point in their life, some of these fans, encountered these books 13 years ago, 12. I have no idea. But it's been more than a decade. So, like, a lot of the fans have changed. Like, you're pretty different than you were 10 or 12 years ago. So one, they've changed, and two, I've changed. And so when I throw in there that I'm doing different things with the world, it's like it does make me nervous how fans are going to take it. It's like, this book is different than what you wrote before. I don't like it. I sort of think that you guys understand that by now. Like if you've read Brent Week's books, you understand that every book is not a carbon copy of the previous book. That I do have some freedom in that. So I have a certain amount of, like, of confidence in my readers that, like, I can change things, and, like, oh, these characters can grow, and growing can be painful, and the characters are going to have to suffer in new ways, and but the fact that, like, some fans will not take it well, I want to please everybody, and I know that you can't. Like, I've been doing this long enough, you can't please everybody. Yeah, that's fine to know, but it's like, I'm making something that I'm pouring all my passion, all my heart into. I want people to love it. I don't do it so that they'll hate it. I mean, that would be really strange, but it's not what I do. So how fans will think about the differences, how they'll react. That's a bit of a worry for me. I mean, some authors pretend like they don't care, but, like, if you don't care, you're probably not publishing your books. You do care how people take things, and you can put on a front. Certainly, some people care less, but everybody wants some reaction. You publish a book so that it can mean something to other people. So that's one insecurity. Another one you did mention, but it's like, do I have the skills to do this? Can I feel like I was a little devious. I feel like I did it in a natural way, but I start with a fairly simple story that you can, like, okay, you start with, this is not a big spoiler because you guys will see the first pages, but, like, you start with like this action sequence, and then it's like, okay, oh, sweet, I know these characters, I know what we're doing, this is awesome. Brent writes this pretty well. Pat myself on the back. I know how to do that. And then I fold in the complexity, and you start to see, okay, who's telling the story? Okay, why, when, where? Do they have? I'm trying to keep this vague, but I fold in some more literary techniques, and so it's like, can I do that? Can I bring fans along? Can I teach them what we're doing as we go without them really even noticing it? And then can I leave them with something that makes them have big questions? And so there's a lot of art that goes into hiding the art, and then doing things that fans aren't expecting, maybe from this kind of book. So some of that was just like, can I do this? Can I get away with this? Can I be daring and have it pay off? So you know, just the other day on Twitter, I was joking around about I use a ton of alliteration in a sentence, and I was thinking of Simon Vance reading that sentence, and it just cracked me up. And like I saw that I could turn it up to 11 and put even more alliteration into the sentence. And so it's like little fun moments like that. It's like, okay, actually I can. I have the tools to do that. I know how to do these things. Is that the right thing for this page? Is that's a funny little sequence. I see what you did there, Weeks. Like, does that take readers too far away from the scene that they're experiencing? And so kind of juggling some of those things. It's like, okay, I now have these tools. Like, this is why I wanted to get away from Night Angel for a while. I didn't think I had the tools to tell the story that I wanted to tell. It's like, okay, now after spending you know, more than a decade doing the Lightbringer series and telling different kinds of stories, like, I have a ton more tools. And now it's like, how do I use the tools? And I can use this tool, but is this the right tool for the job for this page? And then, okay, it's a great tool for this sentence, but this sentence sticks out too much. Like I'm not going to name names, but like I've come. Yeah, sorry. Gotta keep saying. I gotta make you sit right back there. Is it too distracting when I look at the interviewer? You can tell me if it's more distracting or if it feels more natural. But like I've run across quotes by writers that were about literature or whatever, and it's like, this is obviously the writer speaking to the whole audience, not the character speaking to the characters he's speaking to. And that just took me right out of the world. It's like, oh man, you're like patting yourself on the back for making a quotable quote. And it's like, quotable quotes are great, but like, you know, rare is the writer who can just get away with doing quotable quotes. You know, if you're Oscar Wilde, then you just throw a bunch of quotable quotes and you put it on stage and it works. But for most other people, it's like it sticks out of the story. It's like, oh, there's your quotable quote, and to me it pulls me out of the story. So like, okay, you have the skills to put a quotable quote right in there. It's really good. People are going to be putting that on their Facebook pages or whatever. But like, it didn't fit. It didn't fit the characters. It didn't fit the scene. So to me, that's a speed bump. It's like, you're just showing off, and like, I'm thinking about the author rather than thinking about the scene that I'm in. So I have those kind of things now in my own work. I have plenty of other insecurities, but I'm not gonna tell you guys today about those. So we'll save that for the sequel. Okay.
Okay, I'm gonna ask you a question. So,
is this coming from
from
Facebook Live?
Yes.
Oh, nice,
Yes.
nice. So this is the part you guys actually tuned in
Yes.
for. So it didn't take long to get there.
Okay, so Alex Devon asked, what are your thoughts on the rumors about Night Angel and Lightbringer being the same universe or a multiverse that have collided at some point?
I have thoughts. Okay, so here's the thing. So I know some authors do this differently. I know that the Cosmere works differently on this. And people love to do the theory crafting, and Brandon has talked about, this is how this all fits together. He's even done commentaries on his own books to say, this is what this is about. And I don't like that. I don't like certain fans having outside of the book knowledge of what's going on inside the books. I feel like a story should be sort of a voluntary democracy. Like you're all equal when you get here. You get to read the books. You all have all Brent Weeks' books, and you get to come up with what it means. Like, if I tell you what it means, I limit the conversation a ton, and I limit your imagination and your critical abilities in ways that I don't like doing. And you know, there are critical theorists who are like, well, whatever the author says about their stuff doesn't matter. And you can just ignore what the author says. But most people on the internet are going to be like, actually, the author said that that's about World War II. And so this is really about World War II, and you shouldn't be applying it to this other thing, or whatever. And so I don't like doing that. I don't like saying this literature is about this, and this is how these things fit together, because I think it limits it in an unnatural way. I think it takes the books that I give to you. I give you my books. They're a gift. I put in my passion. I put in what I care about. I hope they connect with a human part of you. I hope they connect in ways that are applicable to all sorts of circumstances. So you can say, you know, oh, how the multiverse or whatever fits together. Like, that's a tiny thing, and that doesn't matter to this. And I just think, like, no, if I tell you how these things fit together, then I'm taking it out of your hands. So do I build it? I'm the architect, you're the builder. So there are better architects, there are better builders, but once I take my hands off the plans, I try. I'm not always successful, but I try to give it to the builders, and you guys get to do that. So do I have things in mind? Absolutely. Have I thought about it? Yes. Do the characters know those things? No. And so you have not learned those things. Have I had things in there from the very beginning about the greater world? And it's like, yes. And does an orphan kid on the streets know that stuff? No. And like, I can, I just wrote the acknowledgments, so I talk about this a little bit in the acknowledgments, but like, could I shoehorn in, you know, Kyler goes and talks with a character who happens to be a scholar, and the scholar just, you know, goes on for 5 pages about how the whole world works and whether or not there is a multiverse. Like, absolutely, I could do that. And would it serve the purposes of that book? And I haven't had a book where that book needed Kyler to learn those things on the page. Really, when what I was trying to do was tell the readers, so that the readers could do theory crafting better. And so it's like, that hasn't belonged in the books, so I had to put it in the books. Is it useful to do that for fans and for fandom and maybe for building fandom? Probably. It's just you know, do I think Brandon's artistic choices are bad? It's like, I don't think they're bad. I think they come with a different set of trade-offs. And so he's made certain choices, and I just make different ones. So how they fit together, like, I have some thoughts about that, absolutely, if they fit together. And I try to fit things together in ways that make sense when I do. But when characters don't know that, you're not going to see it on the page. So that's up to you to put it together. And I hope that eventually that's really fun for you. But, you know, I don't want people having to chase down everything that Brent Weeks ever said in an interview or in a conversation in order to be equals to that. It's like, you can read the books, and you can build stuff about what you think it means from the books. Will I ever change on that? It's possible. Is it hard for me to, you know, when the builder builds the house poorly, to not say, oh, not like that? Yes, it is hard for me. So there's some leakage that may occur. So it's fine for you to ask. But in general, I try to hand it over.
This one I feel like is very applicable. We've had this conversation in our house. Kayla Roberts asked, do you have to reread your old books before writing a new one? Or what is the process to make sure it stays true to what you have already written?
Okay, yes, it's really hard for me to reread books I've written before, because I want to edit them. So I'm sitting there being like, oh man, this sentence, this dialogue would have been a lot more natural if and it's like, dude, you can't, it's gone now, you know, it's in the reader's hands, sorry. So it's a painful process to me. With Night Angel, I did end up, I listened to all 3 of them again.
How fast did you listen to them? What speed?
At about 1.5, I think I did it at 1.5. So I often listen to things fairly quickly. That was really helpful. I also revisited a lot of key scenes. I revisited, and then I would frequently have, or I would have questions that I would either ask a beta reader, or I would ask my assistant, hey, can you look up this thing? Because I think I said this somewhere. Here's some keywords. And then she would go search the PDF and look for whether I'd said something about that. And then a lot of times it was like, no, I actually didn't. Like, that was in a draft that never got published. So so sometimes I was remembering things. So that's also the hard part, is remembering things that never made it to the finished page. But yes, it's a major keeping track of just the stuff that you made up, 15 years ago, because obviously I was writing Night Angel books before they got published. So 15 and 20 years ago, I was making up some of this stuff and haven't thought of it a whole lot since then. Yeah, it's a pain. It's not my favorite part of the job. Did I say this or about this or this? I just need it for this one sentence. Okay. Then it takes me, 15 minutes. I get off track. I come back. So it does slow you down too. So that's annoying. So usually I'll just put a little note in the margin. If I said this, then I can do this. If I didn't say this, I can do it this way. And then I sort of try to plow on with the scene. So.
Davey Lucas.
Oh, hey, Davey.
It takes a ton of prep to write a book. Is there a subject you had to research extensively, or specific books or video series, podcasts you watched to prepare for this book? So I did do a lot of research for this book. A lot of it goes, like, I'm doing it all the time. I found numerous cool YouTube videos. Like there's Notes on a Screenplay, I think is one of them. Just analyzing other people's work, which so I think he's applying. Man, I can't remember the screenwriters who he's applying. But he's applying some of the base name screenwriters to scripts that you've already seen, and then do cuts of the movies to show like how that person worked that out. So I watched some of that. I really paid attention to. He had a really good one. Maybe Caps Lock, you could look up the Notes on the Screenplay, the one on. I'm seeing if we can. The one on protagonists, antagonists. He does one with Batman. Maybe you can post that. We'll see if we can post that. We're just trying this on the fly. See if we're good enough to do this. So I did things like watching his stuff. Like, what makes a great antagonist? Well, here's what one person says, and he goes on about why why Joker is a great antagonist. Like, well, what does Joker force Batman to do? Why does that work so well? Why do remember Heath Ledger's Joker so well? And it's because it's written so well. Obviously, it's acted very well too. So I did a lot of that. I did a lot of I wish you guys could have seen my wife miming fighting. I've found some guys who do a lot of the medieval martial arts. The historical European martial arts, I think HEMA guys, doing sword fighting, and there's this Polish duo. Oh, there's at least two of them. I don't know. Academy, like Schmerzmiga or something. I actually put that in the acknowledgments. I have no idea how to pronounce Polish, so sorry for Polish. Those guys are fantastic. So seeing things that people use. I bought some of the medieval fighting manuals to look at how people did things, and some of these, again, I'm repeating stuff that you'll eventually see, or at least some of this you'll eventually see in the acknowledgments, because I talked about this. These medieval fighting masters, so these guys were mercenaries, and you get tired of fighting after a while, and you're like, well, I'm still alive, I must be pretty good at fighting. I know, instead of going out there and risking getting killed, I'm 40 years old now, I'm an old man, I'll teach other people how to not get killed, because I'm really good at not getting killed. And so these guys would put together fighting manuals, and some of them would work with an artist or were artists themselves, and so they would draw these little illustrated things about, here's all the positions you can do, and they'd sort of send these out as like pamphlets. So they're sort of sales pamphlets, like, hey, hire me, I'm the guy who wrote this book. And of course, a bunch of these guys were terrible, or they're really good salesmen, but not actually very good fighters. So there's been in the last, I feel like in the last 10 or 15 years, there's been a whole field of scholarship that's arisen around these things, like figuring out, does this actually work? If it works, how does it work? So you have to, like, one, you have to be a scholar enough to translate the Middle Italian or whatever language they were working in. And then you have to look at the art, and then you have to try to figure out, because sometimes the art's a little awkward, to figure out what they're actually showing. And then you have to work with guys who are willing to be sword fighters, who are willing to spend several years becoming sword fighters, to figure out if they can take these still pictures and then these
descriptions, usually in Latin or something, and then figure out how would those actually work. So you see why this hasn't happened until now, because it's completely pointless. We don't actually use swords anymore to fight very much, unless I'm unaware of certain corners of the planet where that's still a thing. So I spent a lot of time with those, researching that stuff. Obviously, Kyler fights a lot, and obviously sword fighting in most Hollywood movies is abysmal. And it's like, if I slash this plate mail with enough conviction, it will just part very easily. So I wanted to bring a level of not realism, but verisimilitude to the fighting. So I did a bunch of that. That was ongoing. So these things, I don't do all this prep work and then I write, or there's so many fascinating things I would just actually never write. So I do it and then I get going and then I go, I need to, when I write my next sword fight, I need to come back to this and make sure I'm getting this right, or when I do this. And so I did that. I also did a ton of work I was looking at heists, looking at various heist movies, how those work. I feel like those heists have been kind of pushed to a new place. I think they kind of reached a pinnacle with Ocean's 11, where you had kind of the perfect screenplay and the perfect cast, and it did everything right. And then after that, you could still write Ocean's 12 and Ocean's 13 because you're still going to make hundreds of millions of dollars just by putting the same guys on the screen. But they didn't really break new ground in the same way. So then all the movies that have had heists after that have been heist and buddy flick, heist and biting social commentary, and have done other things with sort of the heist rubric. So I've watched movies that are marketed as, I wish I could come up with the name of it, heist movies where it's like, the heist happens in maybe the last half hour and it's terrible. It's really a crime and social, crime and dark comedy and heist movie. So I did a fair amount of research with that, just being like, how does this work? And how does the flow of information work for readers? What are readers' expectations when you do this? And so there is a heist or two. I think I've already said that in some marketing things. But it's not necessarily it's not the center of the heart of this story. But I wanted to get what I did do right, or at least see what was brilliant out there that other people have done. Other people have done brilliant work. So I wanted to refresh myself on, okay, what makes this interesting? Why is this great? So that's kind of the tip of the iceberg, I guess. So I've done a lot of stuff, but a lot of it is as I go along. So it's like, okay, I'm gonna write this next. I need to brush up on this, or man, my antagonist is just not yet doing what I want him to do. And how can I make that stronger? What were the things that guy said? He quoted that book. I can go look up that book. I go buy the book. I look up what that screenwriter said. And I go, okay, that really makes sense to me. The antagonist needs to push the writer to do into his own weakness. So he's got to confront his weakness. Okay, well let's see if I can figure out some ways to do that, etc. So for me, learning is a lifelong process. It's why I think that each book that I write is better. I try new things. I try not to just do the same thing over and over. And so that's been my process with this book.
So that's going to close our question response part. You had said that you wanted to throw a couple questions to the readers.
Oh, right.
And maybe they can just, people who are still hanging in there with us now or who watch this later can reply in comments if that's what you want, or...
Yeah, okay. So I
and then we'll finish.
Okay. How long have we been?
45 minutes.
Oh, wow. Look at that. I said, let's go, 20 to 45 minutes. And I knew that wouldn't happen. So I've been thinking about, as I've withdrawn a lot, not completely, but as I haven't been on social media as much, I've missed out on something that I have enjoyed. Like I enjoy actually interacting with you guys. I like that part. I like feeling that the things I've learned, sometimes the hard way, that I can tell people those things. I can help people who are writing or who are. I like to interact with fans, but it's hard for me to interact on the 1 to 100, kind of scale. Like at that point, it's not a fan I'm talking to, it's a crowd. And so then you have to sort of go to the lowest common denominator, so that people are following you and you're like, man, I'm repeating myself. Like, 20 of you have heard this anecdote twice already. I'm going to tell it again for the people that have no idea who I am. And then I just sort of feel boring. And so for me, helping people in large groups is really challenging. Or it feels like there's just things about it I don't like. I'm still gonna do these kind of things because I think it's part of the expectation. But I was thinking of, I had this kind of off the wall idea that I wanted to bounce off you guys. So I was thinking of having like small author chats, like limited. Like I was thinking of having a sign up, and like I'm gonna sit down with, like, I don't know, once a week. Once a week is too much. So I don't know if it's once a month or what schedule it is. But I would sit down with just like 4 fans, or maybe 6 fans, or 8 fans, and then I just talk with you guys for an hour and be like, how can I help you? Or do you just want to talk about Night Angel and be fans? And so I wanted to ask some questions about that. Like I asked some of my beta readers about this, and they liked the idea, and they said, so their basic thing was, 1, you got to split it up. You can't just have it, like, you get a lot of writing questions, and so you probably need to have separate talks for times when you would just be like, okay, I'm going to meet with writers, and I'll talk to you about writing stuff. Because the writers come and they want to know about writing, and they might not even be my fan. They just know that I'm a writer who talks to writers, to aspiring writers. And so the writers might come in and have something totally different to talk about than just a fan. Like a fan wants to talk about Night Angel, and they want to ask questions about what's next or whatever, or they want to tell me how something landed in their life and what they learned from it, and they're not really interested in all the writing stuff. So I figure, 1, I would split it into like, okay, this time I'm going to talk about writing, this time I'm not talking about writing per se, except as it comes up within conversation. Obviously, whatever small dose of fame I have is because I write, so it would come up. So one, a question I had for you guys was, how large of groups do you think you can have and still have a productive conversation? Like
Yeah, we're talking about like a Zoom chat. Not in person.
No. Sorry, this would be like a Zoom chat. It would have signups beforehand, so it's limited. So it's only this many people get in, and I would have it be like my first. So again, I'm sort of shooting from the cup here. So my first thought is that I would have it be confidential, like ask you guys not to record it. So I'll just speak frankly, and if I want to say something, that's not 100% positive about somebody else's writing because it's a great example, I can say, well, there's this Star Wars thing, let me tell you about this, and not be worried about, oh, the Star Wars fanboys are going to come after me or something stupid like that happens on social media. So it would be private, and how big do you think would be a good number of people to do that? Like, I think, you have 15 people in the room, like, you might sign up and wait for a year to talk to me, and you're the quieter person, and you never actually get to say anything. So that would be like a bummer. Maybe 4 is too small. You get nervous. You don't say anything. Is 8 the perfect size? 8 might be kind of the perfect size, but I would want everybody, even the shy people, and let's be honest, lots of us are kind of shy, or we're shy at first. That's why we read books. And so I would want even the shy people to have a chance to ask a question or two and not just get run over. Usually happens to shy people when you get into group situations. So I like to meet with small groups of people. That works for me well. I feel like I can be more myself. And I thought that would be something that I could give to fans, that I could give to you as humans. And I can only do it to, if it's 8 people at a time, it's like, I'm not going to get through that many people in a year. But if I can meet with you, it's been one of the things that's a trade-off as you get more famous. It's like when you show up to a signing and there's 20 people there, it's like that's kind of a smaller signing, and that's you don't have the energy that you get when 400 people show up to a signing. But you can actually connect with the fans, and if somebody wants to talk to you for 3 minutes, you can do that. And when 400 people show up to a signing, you got to have a pusher and a puller, and you sign the book, you look at the person, maybe you shake their hand, and then they got to go. Like there's just these trade-offs that you have to make as you get more successful or more famous or whatever. And I'm trying to push back against that and help fans in ways that are like not self-aggrandizing. You know, like to do something good, but to do it not to be seen doing something good, but just to do it because it's good. Does that make sense? It's hard. It's hard to be real in the social media world. And I would like to be real. I think it's more helpful. Like I can't. I think I've talked about this briefly before, but like I can't share negatives about my life on social media because people think I'm either looking for pity or they want to really encourage me, and when really like I would share a negative to just say like this is a real job, and if you get this job, if you're lucky enough to get this job, one, you're really lucky, and two, you're gonna have bad days, and here's how you can get past a bad day. You know, so like, but I can't share negatives because it looks like I'm looking for people to rally around me, or you know, social media distorts those things. So you can only kind of share a certain bandwidth of things. So I'm trying to break out of that. So that was my idea. If you guys have any thoughts about what should I call that? You know, I would probably do it with like a sign up genius or something. Two, how big it should be. Three, like how I should organize it. Like should it be around topics? Like okay, hey, 2 years from now I'm going to talk about characters. So if you're a writer and you want to talk about character development, let's talk about that. You know, and it'll just be the 8 of us or whatever. So if you have ideas about organizing it, ways that it could be most beneficial to you guys, most fun to you guys, it would be for you. It would be a way that I'm trying to quietly give back to a community and to be a help. So that was the thing I had. I guess I.
Do you like?
Yeah. What?
If you could do that last question that you're wanting to send to them quickly, and then time to like give your last.
What was my last question?
I don't know about more Q&Rs if you want to talk about that.
Oh, and I guess my last question is, maybe you don't know why you come to the Q&R. Sometimes I don't know why you come to the Q&R either. Like what do you want out of the Q&R? How can I help you with this? What's most meaningful? I mean, obviously there's like a business rationale for it. Like I have a book coming out and I want you to be aware of it. Like, so there's a certain amount where you kind of play the game, because if people don't know you have a book coming out, like you don't get to keep playing the game. So there's a part of it that's self-promotional, and I'm okay with that. I mean, I am excited. I want to share this book with you, but what are some ways, maybe here's an actual question out of it. What are some ways that authors have connected that you have found meaningful and that seem real? You know, I'm not going to set up a YouTube channel and post every day. That's a full-time job. I want to be a writer, but I want to make meaningful connections. And so, do you guys have any people you've seen do it in ways that are really effective, that you feel are genuine, and work in the current media environment? Thanks so much for showing up. If you have other questions for me, obviously I didn't get to that many because I tend to go on and on. If you have other questions for me, please do leave them below. If you want to see more of Christy, you should probably say so. And I will revisit this, and I'll try to answer as many questions as I can in the coming days. So check back in a day or so and see if I've answered some more questions. We will try to post this. It's our first time using Facebook, so I might find out that I had a huge zit here the whole time, or a booger hanging out, or something terrible. So I won't watch the whole thing again to see everything I've said, because I find that unbearable. But I will come to see your questions. So thank you so much for showing up. I appreciate your time, and I better sort of give the sales pitch, right? So Night Angel Nemesis is coming out on April 25th. It'll be out the 27th in the UK and UK publishing territories, which it's not really UK territories, but if you get your books from the UK in English, you count as a UK publishing territory. That's probably on the 27th of April next year. We will very soon have the blurb for that. We currently, I think I just announced it to my mailing list yesterday, so they got a heads up on that. One, we have a mailing list. I send out very few things, so I hate spam. I maybe send out 3 or 4 things a year. Although I'm publishing years, I send out a couple more things. I try to only bother you when I actually have news, and they're usually pretty fun and funny. So I hope you would enjoy those. So there's a mailing list. You can sign up for that on my webpage. We'll probably put a link to it below. And what I told those guys is there are going to be signed editions of Night Angel Nemesis available. Currently, they're available through Books A Million and Barnes & Noble. We do have plans to have them through a UK retailer. We're not ready to announce it yet, so I've been forbidden to speak about that. But that will be happening. And then we also will have other retailers coming up as soon as we can. It's book publishing, so everything goes kind of slow. You'd like it all to be united, but that just never happens. Oh yes, and we have Simon Vance is going to be doing the audiobook, which will also be available the same day. Simon Vance, many of you are aware of his work. He is a Hall of Fame Audible narrator. He's won more awards than you can shake a stick at. It's incredible. He's so good. He ended up doing all of my Lightbringer books, and we have just worked out an awesome deal with him where he is going back and he is recording the earlier Night Angel, re-recording the earlier Night Angel books, so that you can have all the Night Angel books without changing the voice that you're listening to, because people hate changing narrators. And Simon he's the best. So he'll be doing those. He's currently recording those. I believe that the first book of those will be coming out in January 17th. The first of those will be coming out, and then they'll be releasing those monthly. So The Way of Shadows will be out, narrated by Simon Vance, January 17th, and then on to the new books. So thank you so much for your time. Thanks for listening to the whole little blurb. Have a great day.